Good to see you. We're a small company specialized in groundwater sanitization. So I'm just kind of vaguely rotating this mineral very slowly here and there just so you can see the light reflecting off of various planes. In this case, you can see that this mineral shininess or luster, as geologists call it, would be considered vitreous. So it's not dull, it's not earthy, it's not resinous, it's not pearly. It would definitely be, in this case, considered vitreous. I wonder if I can rotate this such that you can see this crystal here, right here. This guy. He's one of my favorites in terms of the shape. And these are the natural geometries that this mineral possesses when it forms in the in conditions that is able to form big crystals like this. And there have been areas that have been the crystals were 3 to 6 meters thick in California. There have been big crystals found in California up to 3 to 6 meters in length, or in thickness rather. Yeah, I really like this crystal habit. That's why I try to buy the minerals that I try to have good geometries for the crystal habit so that it's one of the best ways to identify a mineral is if you have a well-developed habit. That goes a long way as to what that mineral is. Color, again, is a really poor diagnostic to use to identify a mineral. This mineral alone can be colorless, white, pale blue, reddish, greenish, brownish. So, I mean, I try to mention that with every mineral that we talk about. Most of them can be a ton of colors. There are a few exceptions. I think I've read once that malachite might be one of those exceptions, but I don't want to go off the top of my head. So it does have one plane of perfect cleavage, one plane of good cleavage, and one plane of poor cleavage. Somebody mentioned cleavage in chat. So there are 3 different planes, only one of which is perfect. Yeah, strontium isn't too uncommon in sedimentary rocks, and here's where I've personally found strontium in sed rocks. Last decider is in orthoclase, actually. Barium-rich and strontium-rich orthoclase. We've had 2 different varieties form in diagenetic settings in my samples. So in the case of orthoclase, or feldspars in general, you can have calcium, sodium, or potassium theoretically be replaced here and there by strontium and or barium. This mineral, the crystal system in which it lays is orthorhombic. So that's of the 6 crystal classes, that is the one that it fits in. Its hardness is about 3 to 3.5, which is the ease of which you can actually abrade or scratch the surface of this mineral. It has nothing to do with the way this mineral breaks. That's its tenacity. And in this case, I believe its tenacity is brittle, but I don't have that written down. So we'll check that out on Mindat here in a moment. So I imagine then if it's brittle, if I were to drop this mineral and it were to hit some spot just right, it would just break and shatter into many pieces. Specific gravity is just under 4. It's about 3.96. Again, it's fairly dense, but not like galena dense. I think galena is more around a 7. Twinning is very, very rare. So where you have multiple minerals kind of growing out the side of each other, you're not going to see that too often in celestite. Its streak is white, so if you were to rub this mineral along a black or white streak plate, you're going to see a white streak, or, well, it wouldn't really show up on the white streak plate, will it? So this is why, again, I like to have 2 different streak plates. One that looks like this, and one that looks like this. And you'll notice that one actually still has a streak on it from a previous mineral I used it on. All right. I am actually going to take a picture of this. Let's see. I just want to take a quick picture of this for the thumbnail later. I'd say that's all right. I think the colors are pretty good. It's decent enough. I'm not a photographer. It's all I need. I don't need anything crazy. No, I don't. Well, actually, I don't know if it reacts to UV. We'll find out. All of your gear is dirty. The desert sucks sometimes. Yes. Yes, indeed it does. This mineral is similar to barite. Barite is a fairly common sulfate, barium sulfate, and it forms very similarly in similar environments, and they're very, very similar in chemical composition. I'm surprised they don't form a solid solution series. In fact, we might find that on Mindat. I like to save Mindat for the end. I don't actually look at it until stream so that I can be surprised with you guys about the cool information. I'm not kidding. I like saving that. I take all the notes from my books and whatnot, and then I like to save it. Yeah, quartz is pretty easy to identify, at least in prismatic form. If it's just an aggregate, then it's going to be harder on the rocket stage scale. It's on the caffeine scale. I have a caffeine scale. So, again, celestite's found in cavities, veins, and disseminated grains in limestone, dolomite, marine, and evaporite. So it can actually form in marine environments, at least where there is an oxygen present for this mineral to form. And it also can form in hydrothermal veins, where the conditions are right, where there are elements floating in solution such that this mineral can actually precipitate. Oftentimes, if there's sulfur and iron, pyrite is going to form. But if you've got the right kind of elements around, then you're going to get strontium sulfate or barite or other things. Another interesting location that celestite can form in is actually desert environments as an evaporate, which is pretty cool. It is a principal source of strontium. It is a mineral that is largely mined for the element strontium. I mean, you could potentially find it, I guess, in igneous rocks from hydrothermal deposits, or whatever type of rock is being hydrothermally altered, theoretically. But it is primarily found in sedimentary rocks, yeah. And sandstones. It is found in sandstones as well. So, the crystal shapes that celestite generally takes can be massive, fibrous, granular, nodular. So, in this case, I would probably call this, well, I don't know. Some of these crystals are actually kind of almost prismatic. They're kind of elongate. Some of them are, anyway. There's some definitely massive crystals to that, too. But there's definitely some really nice elongate prismatic crystals in there. We mentioned the barium substitutes freely for strontium, forms in limestones, dolomites, and sandstones, can precipitate directly from seawater, commonly occurs in evaporite deposits as a minor constituent, but still, it's cool and can occur there. Let's see, I'm just trying to make sure I didn't miss anything that I've gone over already. Oh, here's something that I thought was pretty cool. Oh no, it's something else. So the location for collectors' specimens can be found in the following countries. And the one that I have is from Madagascar. So Madagascar, Mexico, Italy, Canada, and the U.S. U.S. specifically being, I think, California. The biggest or the thickest celestite crystals were found to be 3 to 6 meters in some part of California, most likely the desert. There are a lot of marine deposits all over California because it used to be covered in a shallow marine environment. So I wouldn't be surprised because you have a lot of sedimentary environments there on top of a lot of old marine environments. So I'm really not surprised there's a lot of celestite found there. Lesser amounts are found in England, Austria, Germany, and Slovakia. So Lassicite or Virgil, you might be able to find a little bit where you guys are at. I just don't know where those mines are. We can check out on Mindat and see if there are any mines in your area. Strontium is used for the red color in fireworks, by the way. It's also for signal flares, tracer bullets. It's transparent to translucent, as you can see here. It's a little bit cloudy, but for the most part, it's almost translucent. And its refractive index is about 1.62 to 1.63. Again, yielding a vitreous luster. So, that is the bulk of the details I have for celestite. So let's take a look and see what we've got on Mindat. No! All the altered rubidium strontium ratios for dating! All lost! See, I haven't had to do any of that in my site, so that's not something I would personally be upset about, but I can understand and appreciate that. I don't know. But there's so many mass transfers of elements throughout so many different settings in the Earth's crust, man. And I know that I do diagenesis, right, specifically, but I did study albedoization and other types of rock, specifically during deuterism and metasomatism and in diagenesis, and a lot of mass transfer of various elements constantly happening. I mean, there's tons of warm water, there's tons of the geothermal gradient, the pressure, all of it, time, all of it plays a part, and you know this. It's just it makes science that much harder to calculate and do when you've got so many things moving and constantly shifting and changing. You've got mechanical and physical changes on top of chemical changes on top of biological changes. And this is why I love geology, and this is why geology also makes me have migraines. All right, so other samples of celestite and how it can look. So here's a nice blocky sample. This wouldn't be acicular. It's not needle-like. Damn it, what would I call this? In fact, I'm going to go over all the habit terminologies really quickly because I want to be able to remember them and go over them again. So prismatic is elongate with bounding faces forming a prism-like shape, which is basically what we saw in our celestite sample. And I would say this is nice prismatic crystal. It's elongate with nice geometric faces. It's perfectly formed. It doesn't look like it's been fractured. It's really actually very, very nice. Acicular would be needle-like. Tabular would be literally flat like a board. Bladed would be elongate and flat. So kyanite is a really good example of that one. Capillary is more like hair-like or thread-like or thin. Millerite is a good example of this one. Fibrous is thread-like masses, like chrysotile, so multiple threads. So that's the difference between capillary. Capillary would be maybe individual thread-like crystals, and fibrous would be multiple masses of them. Dendritic is more like a tree-like or leaf-like form. It's very, very distinct. Tree-like branching is kind of what you could imagine. Foliated. Typically, foliated is left to metamorphic rock descriptions, but in this case, one of the pieces of literature I have do describe it as thin leaves or plates that can be separated from one another. So in that case, they're talking about micas. Massive is just totally devoid of crystal faces. So you could maybe say that down here would be massive, whereas this up here would be nice and prismatic. We'll just go over those for now because there are some other terminologies like botryoidal, reniform, stalactitic, geodoolitic, granular, compact banded, but some of those can go into rock descriptions as well as mineral descriptions. So we're just going to go over the habit for now. So I just described prismatic as elongate with nice, well-developed faces. Acicular is needle-like. Tabular is flat. Bladed is flat and elongated. Capillary is hair-like. Fibrous is hair-like in masses. Dendritic is tree-like or branch-like. Foliated are separated by thin sheets, so something like a mica, muscovite, biotite. And massive would be totally devoid of crystals. It was named after, gosh, I took notes on that. Why didn't I say anything about that? I probably forgot. It was named after the word heavenly in, I think, Latin? I don't remember. Ah! Notes everywhere! Yeah, Celestite. Celestite, meaning heavenly. I don't know, I probably miswrote that word, but it means heavenly. And it refers to the faint blue color of a lot of the specimen that are found. So there is a solid solution series between barite and celestine. So that means that barium and strontium can substitute all the way through to celestite and through barite. And you can have any amount of mixtures in between. I wonder if there's an immiscibility gap. There's some really, really good samples. This is a very, very nice one. I guess this would be considered acicular. Maybe bladed. Maybe bladed. Let's see. It's a sulfate. Oh, it is brittle. There's twin gliding and transition gliding. I need to remind myself about that. Gliding in crystallography just has to do with the way the unit cell repeats itself when the mineral is forming. And I think it has to do with a translation and a mirror. but I need to reread it. I can't remember off the top of my head now. It does fracture irregularly or unevenly. God, so many things fracture conchoidally or subconchoidally, so that at least deviates from the norm in that case. I probably just talk about a lot of silicates, which oftentimes do fracture conchoidally. Solid solutions are basically minerals having intercourse exchanging cations. I know, I love it, Lasty. I love it so much. Every time I find a solid solution series between any sort of minerals, I get so excited. It's like, that cation exchange is so sexy. It's so excited. Like, I got so happy when I found all those barium and strontium-rich orthoclases in my samples, because to me that suggested multiple sources, and indeed there were, because there were the Sierra Nevada on the east side of my basin and the coastal range on the west side of my basin, both yielding two completely different types of igneous rock. So that was really, really fun to find and kind of figure out and unravel. Its birefringes is very, 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 very low. I need to remind myself about the class H through M. I don't know if I ever really want to go through that again. It was every time I try to reread it, I just get super bored. But this is the if conditions are ideal, this is the shape that will form in celestite. I really, really like these terminations at the ends. They're really cool. This is one of the few minerals that is not hexagonal that I like. No, is it hexagonal? No, it's orthorhombic. Yeah, it's orthorhombic. I generally really like hexagonally shaped minerals, but I really, really enjoy the shape of this one.